we are going to see syntax directed translation. So in syntax analysis, we just check whether the given statement is syntactically correct or not. But as part of that, if we want to know more attributes about those statements, suppose if we want to know like the evaluation order, or if we want to know the type of that, so we need to know more things about the statement other than just syntax. So we add all those rules along with the grammar. We call them as syntax directed translations. So now we will see what exactly is syntax directed translation and how we associate those rules with the grammar symbols. So we use these translations to compute some attributes, right? The attribute can be a type, or the attribute can be actual value itself, or the attribute can be memory location, or it can be anything. So there are two kinds of attributes we may compute for any grammar symbol. One is synthesized, the other one is inherited. So what is synthesized attribute? We call some attribute as synthesized attribute if the value of that attribute can be computed from its children. Suppose we have a production like something like this, and let's assume that this is addition operation. So we have two expressions and we perform addition of those two and we store it in something called sum. So now here to know the value of this, we need to know the value of this and value of this. So the parent, this is the past tree, right? So E plus E. So here the definition will be like this. Start value is nothing but E, let's assume this is E1, E2, E1 dot value plus E2 dot value. So to compute this attribute value, here I am just taking an example and my attribute here is value. So to compute this attribute value, I need to know E1 value and E2 value. So S value depends on E1 and E2. So to compute S value, first I need to compute E1 and E2 values. So I say that this value of S is a synthesized attribute because the value is depending on the children of this grammar symbol. So we say that whenever there is an attribute and the corresponding value of that attribute depends on the children nodes of that particular grammar symbol, we call that attribute as synthesized attribute. Let's see what is inherited attribute. So by word we can understand that the inherited attribute is something where the value depends on either parent or siblings. Suppose there is something like x, y, and again there is a value attribute which is x dot val followed by s dot val or something of this sort. Then to compute this y dot value, I need to know these two values, that means parent and sibling. So whenever there is a grammar symbol whose value is depending on parent or siblings is called as inherited attribute. So these are two kinds of attributes. We will see more examples to know where we need to have inherited attributes and where we will have synthesized attributes, what are the advantages, disadvantages, all those things. So this is the basic difference between inherited and synthesized attributes. Now coming back to syntax directed translation, so this translation schemas will tell you how to compute that particular attribute for a given grammar. So there are two kinds of syntax directed translation. One is syntax directed definition and the other one is translation schema. So in syntax directed definitions, we will just tell how to compute the attributes, but we will not tell any implementation details. So we associate high level rules for each of the symbol to say that okay, whenever I apply this production, I want to apply this rule as well to compute some attributes, but it will not tell when exactly it needs to be applied as part of this parsing or how to apply. It will not tell any implementation details of how that rule needs to be applied. That is syntax directed definition. So they will specify very high level computation of attributes. And the other one is translation schemas. In translation schemas, it will tell some implementation details. Suppose we have a translation schema, and if we want to compute a particular attribute value when we are doing this operation, or when we are computing this value or this value, it will exactly tell where this rule needs to be applied, maybe here or maybe here or something. So translation schema will also tell some implementation detail, like when exactly it needs to be computed, apart from saying that okay, whenever I replace this with this value, I know that I have to compute one attribute, but that syntax directed definitions will tell. But translation schemas, in addition to that, they will also tell some implementation details like order of computation. Suppose for this prediction there are 10 attributes I want to compute. Then they will also tell if there is any dependency in the attributes or anything, which order they needs to be computed, all those things. So that is translation schemas. Let us take one example and try to understand the attributes. So this is the example grammar, and these are semantic rules to compute the attribute value for each prediction. So this is nothing but simple expression grammar, right? So we have two operations, addition and multiplication, and finally we do the operation for digits. So now these are the semantic rules for the grammar. If we see these semantic rules, so everywhere the value of this symbol is depending on the right side symbols. That means to compute this value, we need to first compute these two symbol attributes. So that is nothing but synthesized attributes. So every time, because all these values are always depending on the children node values, so we can say that this grammar has only synthesized attributes. Now let's see how we apply semantic rules as part of parsing. So whenever for parse tree, if we associate all these attribute values, we call that parse tree as annotated parse tree. Now let us see parse tree for this grammar. So let's take an example of 5 plus 2 star 3. So now how do we construct parse tree for this? First L derives E, and he derives E plus T, and this derives T, this derives F, this derives digit, that is nothing but 5, and this T derives F, F derives E, E derives T again, and T derives T1 star F. So T again derives F, it is nothing but digit 2, and again F derives digit, that is nothing but 3. Now how do we need to compute attribute, that is value at each of these steps for each of these symbols, right? So let's see how do we compute that. So as part of this syntax tree, So because all of them are using synthesized attributes, so we should always start at the leaf, right? So to compute any attribute value at any internal node, first we should have computed, we should compute the leaf node attributes. So let's start with this one. So here first one is 5. So it is nothing but whenever there is f derives some digit production, we directly copy that value of that digit to f. So here we have f dot val. Now t derives f. So we copy f value to t dot value. So here again we copy, that is nothing but 5. Now E dot val. So E dot val, we are replacing this with this production, right? So E derives T. So we copy T dot val to E dot val. That is again 5. Now can we do this? No, because this value again depends on these two values. So first we should compute these things. So here again let's start from the bottom. F dot value, it is nothing but 2, and t derives f, so t dot value is 2, and similarly f value is 3. So t derives t1 star f. So now the value of this t is multiplication of these two values, that is nothing but 6. Now we simply copy 6 to E and we copy this E value to F, so it is 6, and this will be copied to C, so this is 6. And now we have already computed these two values, so E dot value is nothing but sum of these two, so we copy 11, and whenever we replace this production L with this, so we need to print that value, so finally 11 will be printed. That is how we are evaluated. So if we carefully observe what we have done in this past tree, we have done post ordered traversal, right? So we started with this and we computed, so left first and then right and then node. That is nothing but post ordered traversal. So if a grammar uses only synthesized attributes, then the order of evaluation should be post order traversal, because we need to compute the children values before the root value. So any grammar that uses only synthesized attributes can be evaluated with post order traversals. Let us take one more example with inherited attributes. So this is nothing but declaration statement. So in declaration statement we specify type followed by identifiers, right? Something like this. So whenever we do this, so the type of these two attributes are integer. So the value, the type attribute of this identifier is depending not on its children but on the left side symbol. So now that is why to know the type of this, we depend on the left side symbol, that is nothing but T. So whenever we have this kind of statements, the type for this will be nothing but this one. So now let us see how we write the parse tree for this and how we compute these attributes using these semantic rules. So let's start with D first. T, R, T, L. T is integer, L is L1, comma, ID. L1 is again ID, right? So this is the parse tree for this statement. Now first ID. So we know that identifier, this is nothing but ID1 and this is nothing but ID2. So first we will get the actual name of this identifier, and now whenever we have this production L.ID, so we add an entry in a symbol table for this identifier saying that this is a identifier, but the type of identifier is, we need to know the attribute of L1. That means this identifier is depending on L1. In synthesized case, this depends on the children node, but in this case, because it is an inherited attribute, so this is depending, the value of this, the type of this is depending on the inherited attribute of L1. So before we add this entry, we need to compute that inherited attribute. So let's start from this again. And T, for T there are no inherited attributes, so we assign T dot type as integer. Now, so whenever we replace D with TL, we apply this semantic rule, that is L dot inherited attribute is T dot type. We know that T dot type is an integer, so here L dot inherited attribute will be integer. Correct? Now next we replace L with L1 comma D. So in this case again we need to apply this semantic rule. So whenever we have this identifier, we already know the inherited attribute of L. Now we need to compute the inherited attribute of L1. So L1 dot inherited attribute is nothing but L dot inherited attribute. So we add integer for this inherited attribute, and we add an entry for identifier 2 in symbol table with this inherited attribute value, right? And now we come to ID1. In for ID1 we add an entry, and the type of this will be the inherited attribute of this, that is nothing but integer. So if we see, we haven't done this in post order, right? Because here in post order first we would have evaluated in this order, but in this case we have evaluated these before the children of this. So that is because there are some inherited attributes which are depending either on the root or sibling, so we cannot evaluate this pass tree in post order traversal. Whenever there are inherited attributes, evaluation cannot be done with post order traversal. Then how do we evaluate this? So we need to first know which one is depending on which attribute, and based on that we should decide the evaluation order. So first we need to construct a graph for all the dependencies, and then we find topological order of the evaluation. So that is nothing but topological sorting, right? Let's see how do we construct the dependency graph. So it is very similar to the dependencies, right? So whenever there is an identifier, it always depends on L. So we put an edge like this. This shows that ID is depending on L, because to add this entry we need to first compute inherited attribute of L. So in this way we will know that, so to compute this, whenever there is this one on the right hand side, so to evaluate this production, first we should have evaluated the productions which are having L on the right hand side. So that is how we construct the dependency graph, and once we construct the graph we will find the topological order and based on the dependencies, and we evaluate the expressions in that order. So the biggest disadvantage with this inherited attribute grammar and this approach is that if there are n symbols, so you should construct the graph for all those n symbols and the dependencies. So that itself will take lot of time, and after constructing the graph you need to find topological order, which will again take time. So you cannot always say like post order or pre-order that okay, if we evaluate in this order it will give me the result, because you don't know the dependencies, because inherited can depend either on right side or left side on parent. So you cannot say that one order work for all kind of inherited attributes. So first we need to construct the dependency graph and then find topological order from that graph to know what is the order of evaluation when there are inherited attributes. So we restrict dependencies of inherited attributes in such a way that we don't have to construct full dependency graph to know the order. That is called attributed grammar. So in attributed grammar, we impose certain rules for the dependencies so that we don't have to compute the overall topological order. So how do we impose the rules? Let's see. So in attributed grammar, there are two types of grammars. One is L attributed, the other one is S attributed. So we call a particular grammar as S attributed if it has only synthesized attributes. That is very simple, right? We know that whenever there are only synthesized attributes, it can be done in post order evaluation. So we don't need to do anything extra to know the order of evaluation. So that is one thing, and the other one is L attributed grammar. So what is L attributed grammar? L attributed grammar can use either synthesized or inherited, but with some restrictions. What are the restrictions? It can use the inherited attributes only, but they should only depend on the left side siblings or parent. So left or parent. They cannot depend on the right side siblings. So this will ensure that there will not be any cycles in the dependency graph, right? Because if there is one depend on this and this depends on this, then there will be a cycle. We don't know how to evaluate this, right? Because we cannot, there is no order that will tell that okay, this first or this first. So that is why, to avoid these kind of things, we standardize the dependencies in L attributed, that it can either depend on left side of symbols or the parents in the syntax tree. So in that way we know that okay, all synthesized attributes can be evaluated with post order traversal, and this can be evaluated with pre-order traversal. So whenever there is inherited attribute, that can be evaluated with pre-order, and synthesized can be evaluated with post order. We don't have to worry about other orderings. So that is why we prefer these attributed grammars instead of randomly adding semantic rules for any symbols. So one is L attributed grammar, the other one is S attributed grammar. Now let's see translation schemas. So far whatever we have seen are syntax directed definition. There we are associating semantic rules with the predictions, but we are not telling when exactly that semantic rule needs to be applied. So here we specify the order also. We know that that is called translation schema. So this is an example translation schema. So to understand how we evaluate this, let's see with an example. Let's see parse tree for this grammar to derive this string. So let's start with E. E derives T, R, and T derives number, that is the prediction, and R derives add of T followed by R, and T derives number again, and R derives add of T and R, and again T derives a number, and R derives epsilon. So this is the parse tree, right? Now let us apply these semantic rules. Here in this we know the order, we know when exactly to apply semantic rule also. So let's start with this prediction. Here whenever we apply t dot num, we need to print the value of number. So here number value is nothing but 9. Okay, so this is the first rule that we will be applying. Let's number this to know the sequence. Next, after that, which one needs to be applied? After that we are replacing R with AOTR. So here we need to apply this semantic rule after evaluating T, right? So first we should evaluate T. So T derives num. In this case what should we print? We should print the num value. What is the number here? It is nothing but 5. So this is the second production for which I apply the semantic rule. And after this, now which needs to be evaluated after whenever we are done with t, before evaluating R1 we need to print the operator, correct? So what is the operator here? This one, that is nothing but minus. So that is how we print. And then we come to evaluation of R. Again here R will be replaced with this production, and then first we evaluate t, that means we evaluate t derives num. As part of this we need to print the value of number, that is nothing but 2. And then after this, before evaluating R, we should, this will be the third one to evaluate, and then before this we should print the value of operator, that is nothing but plus, and then we are done, right? Because as part of this we don't have any semantic rule. So this is the output of this parse tree if I apply the semantic rules as per this translation schema. So if we observe what it has done, as part of this translation schema rule application, I have converted a infix expression to postfix expression. So we can use the translation schemas to do these kind of operations as well. Same expression, to convert it into postfix, we can use these translation schemas. So but we should know the order of evaluation. We should know when exactly this rule needs to be applied. Suppose if we, instead of printing here, if we print after this one, then it will have totally different expression, right? So the order of that evaluation is also sometimes important. That's why we use translation schemas in most of our real life applications or whenever we construct parses, because they will tell exact order of evaluation also. Now let's see this expression and let's try to draw the parse tree for this expression. First, E derives T R and T derives number, in this case it's 9, and then R derives, should start with minus, so minus T R1, and then T derives number again, and R1 derives plus T R1, and T derives a number, and we have to derive 9 minus 5 plus 2, so it is 9 minus 5 plus 2, so finally R1 derives epsilon. Now let's see how to apply these translation schemas. So let's start from this production. So here T derives number. So whenever we apply this production, we have to apply this rule as well. So what is this saying? It is saying that the attribute called val for T is nothing but number. So T dot val is number. Here number is 9. We assign that. And then we come to this production. E derives TR. So here, because it's a translation schema, we should apply the rules in that given order. So it is saying that first evaluate T and then apply this rule before evaluating R. So what is that rule? That rule is saying inherited attribute for R is nothing but T dot value. So here inherited attribute for R is 9. Now minus T derives number, again we need to copy the value of this number, that is nothing but 5, and before we move to R, there is, for R productions also there is a rule that for R1 we need to compute inherited attributes, that is, for this we need to compute inherited attribute, that is nothing but R dot I 9 minus T dot val 5, that is 4. So we should compute R1 inherited attribute value before we move to R1's production. Now we come back to R1. Now R1 production is plus T derives number is nothing but 2, and before we move to R1 again we need to apply a rule. this rule, right? Because plus TR. So before R we have this rule that says that for this inherited attribute is nothing but this inherited attribute, that is 4, plus T dot value, that is 2, that is nothing but 6. And then we have R derives epsilon production. So what is it saying? It is doing nothing other than copying this inherited attribute to synthesized attribute. So we say that R dot S is 6. And then this is done. So after this is done, we have one more rule to apply, that is nothing but for this R and their synthesized attribute is nothing but this inherited attribute. So we need to copy this 6 to this synthesized attribute, and then once we are done with this we have to apply this rule. So again copying synthesized attribute to R dot synthesized, and once we are done with this production again we need to copy this synthesized attribute to E dot value, that is nothing but 6. So finally the final value of E is 6. So we have evaluated in this order based on the translation schema. So that is why we should always see like how to evaluate the attributes based on the translation schema. Here we have given with translation schema, so we should compute the attribute values only in that order. Assume there is a grammar which has only synthesized attribute. That means it needs to be evaluated in bottom up way, right? So if a grammar has only synthesized attributes, instead of doing one more phase to evaluate the attributes, so we can extend the parser itself to evaluate the synthesized attributes. So we use LR parsers for bottom up evaluation, right? So we use same parser technique by extending the stack capability, that means adding one more stack, we can also compute the synthesized attributes. Let's take this example input and see how we use extra stack to evaluate those synthesized attributes. So this is the input string and initially there is nothing, and then we move 3, the value stack will also have 3, and then we replace 3 with F by using that F2 digit production. Then there will not be any change, and then we replace F with T to F production because there is no semantic rule, so there will not be any change in that stack, and then we move star now to T star. So then we don't move anything to that value stack, and then we move this 2 to this place and this to the stack again, and then we replace 2 with F, so the value will be same, and now T star F with T, so it will not change. T star F with T, then we have to do one operation to compute the value. So what should we do? We should do multiplication of top and top minus 2 and push it as the new top, that is nothing but 6, and then we replace T with E, no change, and then we move plus and no change, and then we move 1, so we move 1 to stack as well, then I'll write remaining steps here, and then E plus 1 I'll replace with F, no change in the stack, this is state and this is value stack, and then I replace F with T, no change, and then I'll replace E plus T with E, then I have to apply this semantic rule. So what it does, it computes addition of top and top minus 2, that is nothing but 7. So finally I'll replace E with L, then I will have to print the value, print 7. So the final value that is printed by this attribute grammar is 7 for this input string. That is how we use extra stack to evaluate the attributes as part of the parser construction itself.